Evergreen forests reach down to emerald waters. Snow-capped mountains scrape the sky, and awesome glaciers reshape the land as they slowly retreat and advance. It is a land yet untamed, where the eagle still flies, and the frontier towns of yesterday maintain the spirit of their ancestors. The natives called it the Great Land and made their homes along its rich waters. Prospectors, adventurers, missionaries, and naturalists were drawn to Alaska in the late 1800s, each seeking their own special treasure. The robust spirit of these early explorers lives on here, and the people of Alaska are still as unique as the unspoiled land. Come with us as we travel through Southeast Alaska's Inside Passage. Visit Ketchikan, where king salmon lures visitors onto the water. Travel by ferry to Wrangell's peaceful port and on to Petersburg, Alaska's Little Norway. Venture out to the old Russian capital of Sitka for music and culture, then back to the bustling capital city of Juneau. Just outside of Juneau rests the mighty Mendenhall Glacier. By foot or air, it's a spectacular sight. For another look at the great glaciers, we'll travel to Glacier Bay and witness the rebirth of the land as it's released from the ice. Further north, we visit Haines, a center for Northwest Native arts, where snow-capped mountains rise from the town's edge. And at journey's end, we come to Skagway, a restored gold rush town that each day recreates its past in the great Klondike Gold Rush of 1898. Southeast Alaska has it all. In fact, more than half of Alaska's most visited attractions are located along the Panhandle. This narrow strip of land, with its islands and fjords, is a small part of Alaska's mass, but the vast resources and relatively mild climate have long attracted people. Russia, under the leadership of Alexander Baranov, was the first to move in on the natives. Even though trade with the West flourished, the colonies in Russian America were proving too expensive to maintain. In 1867, then Secretary of State William H. Seward convinced a reluctant Congress to pay Russia 2.5 cents per acre for the land. They called it Seward's Folly. But the folly became a bargain when gold was discovered in 1898. Interest in Alaskan resources grew. Steamships brought early explorers to the southeast shores, and water travel continues to be a major mode of transportation. Alaska has more coastline than the rest of the United States combined, and more than half of its cities are unreachable by conventional roads. To serve these isolated communities, the Alaska Marine Highway System was created. Celebrating its 25th anniversary in 1988, the system now operates 9 ships. One of them, the Malaspina, uses a wheel left over from the old steamship days.
I think when they refurbished it, they took the other one off and then put this one. They got it out of the Red Dog saloon.
How is it to work, to steer with?
It's good.
It's got some good grip.
Well, you get some good feel of what you're doing with it.
The waters of the Alexander Archipelago are relatively calm, but narrow in places. Ferry crews are fully experienced in piloting their ships through these waterways. The arrival of the ferry system opened up Southeast Alaska. The towns have grown as thousands of passengers now make the journey up the Inland Passage.
I just decided to quit work and get out there and do some traveling.
Yeah.
See some open country, meet some good folks. We slept more on the outer side of the deck, and it was just super. Couldn't ask for anything better than.
And the view?
Oh man, panoramic. It's like, look, the awe.
All right.
Riding the ferry through these calm blue-gray waters is a fascinating experience. Surrounded by an ever-changing coastline of mountain peaks and islands, you realize you're entering a truly vast area. A popular spot to take it all in is the solarium deck, where you can lounge in the fresh air as you glide past Indian villages. There's a good chance you'll see a whale. The easy pace provides plenty of time to relax and take in the scenery. The ferry offers indoor observation areas, a lounge, a snack bar, and a dining room. On the Columbia, the largest ship in the fleet, a first-class buffet is served every other night.
Well, we have peas, shrimp fried rice, stuffed potato, mashed potato and gravy, regular rice, hamburger stroganoff, baked chicken, sweet and sour halibut, and last but not least, parrot of beef.
And after a meal like this, there's nothing like a sunset from the deck of the ferry. But this is only the beginning of the Southeast Alaskan experience. Along this scenic shoreline await the towns of the Panhandle, each with its own special charm. The first stop heading north is the gateway city of Ketchikan, also known as the rain capital. Located on an island, the town spreads out along the water at the base of 3,000-foot Deer Mountain. The first impression of Ketchikan is the bustling waterfront with ships coming and going and small float planes crisscrossing the landscape. Ketchikan is known as the salmon capital of the world. Sports fishermen from all over flock to this area, where opportunities for charter fishing are virtually limitless. Timber has also played a major role in the local economy, and in the past, Ketchikan had the reputation of a rough-and-tumble mill town. Today, however, the edges are wearing away, and the robust atmosphere in this town of 14,000 gives a sense of activity and purpose. A walking tour of Ketchikan leads you up the Street of Stairs. Those willing to make the climb are rewarded with a magnificent view. Below is historic Creek Street. Built on pilings in the early 1900s, Creek Street quickly became a red light district. Dolly's House, a restored brothel, is now a museum showcasing furniture and decor picked by Dolly herself. Gold miners and explorers seeking warm company frequented these houses. Some could be reached only by a boat ride up Ketchikan Creek. Further up the creek is Deer Mountain Hatchery. Managed by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, the hatchery has been rearing salmon since 1955.
The eggs from the for the hatchery for the Chinook salmon, come from adult Chinook salmon that send Ketchikan Creek and enter the hatchery, and where they're held to ripen and then are spawned. The eggs are then taken and placed in incubators where they're kept until the fry have hatched. The eggs have hatched, the fry are free swimming and are ready to feed through their mouth. They're placed in tanks and kept there for approximately 22 months and then released, and they're released at several different locations depending on what the program is.
Back in town, your walk may take you to Chief Cayenne's Totem at the end of Main Street. Many of these monuments in cedar can be found throughout the area. Just a short bus ride out of town is spectacular Totem Bight. Here, at the site of an ancient Tlingit Indian camp, a group of totem poles guard a fine, handcrafted tribal house. The totem poles were carved for a variety of reasons. To show family lineage, to illustrate real-life experiences, tell legends, and to honor the dead. Walking through the park with these silent, haunting faces gazing down, one can almost feel the presence of an ancient tribe. Another totem park is located in the Tlingit Indian village of Saxman, only 3 miles from Ketchikan. Unlike Totem Bight, Saxman is still home to Indians. Traditional native arts are practiced here and passed on to new generations through apprenticeships.
It's not enough just to be a carver. There's more to it. It's your heritage that backs you up 100%. And plus, so you have to learn about your ancestry, their names in Tlingit, who your uncle was, who your mother's father was, who your father's mother was, what their names were in Tlingit, the stories, you know, the songs that are handed down from one generation to the next.
To take advantage of all the Ketchikan area has to offer, visitors should plan on more than a day's outing. Travelers who like comfortable but casual accommodations will enjoy family run-ins like the North Tongass Bed and Breakfast. Full-scale vacation spots like the Salmon Falls Resort offer dock facilities and outfitting for every fishing need. Here at Salmon Falls, gourmet meals are served in a lodge that blends with the natural surroundings. While featuring tourist attractions, Ketchikan maintains its Alaskan identity. Further north, along the Inside Passage, lies the town of Wrangell, which offers another fascinating window into down-home Alaskan life. Located on an island near the mouth of the Skagway River, this small town relies on timber and fishing for its livelihood. With a history that goes back to the Russians, Wrangell existed under 3 successive flags, first Russian, then British, and finally American. Wrangell also has a strong Indian heritage. Just offshore on Chief Shake's Island stands a choice collection of totem poles and a replica of the Indian chief's community house. The town's slow pace gives visitors a chance to relax before continuing the journey north. At the northern end of the Wrangell Narrows lies Petersburg, Alaska's Little Norway. Many Norwegians were attracted to this area by the fishing and a climate similar to their homeland. Petersburg's Scandinavian heritage remains visible in the colorfully painted houses and storefronts, the Viking ships, and the Sons of Norway Hall. Traditions are passed on from generation to generation, and many of the older residents still carry strong Norwegian accents.
There was both in Sweden and Norway and Denmark, and those countries, there was very poor countries, you know. So so that's the reason they left. And the same thing, all those Englishmen that came into this country and all those other countries, poor countries, and they had more opportunity here.
Petersburg is a photographer's delight. Alongside the distinctly Scandinavian sights is the Hammer Slough, where stilled houses rise above a saltwater eddy. Petersburg's beautiful harbor is home to the largest halibut fleet in the southeast.
We've got around 700 to 800 boats that stay local, and then in the summertime we can jump up to an extra 300-400 boats a month. We range from the small skiffs up to, we can house up to the 100-foot range. We have three fish canneries, and then we've got a shrimp cannery right off to the side here, and they take them there and unload them. The trollers have to dress theirs out and have them presentable for freezing. Then the gill netters and the seiners, they just take them and then the cannery cleans them and cuts them up for canning.
Petersburg's natural beauty and Scandinavian flavor make it one of the most charming stops along the Inside Passage. In the center of town, the Fisk sculpture pays homage to fishing, the heart of Southeast Alaskan life. Fishing is one of the most important industries in Southeast Alaska. Each year, thousands of young people come north to work in Alaskan canneries. The canneries process a wide range of seafood, including salmon, shrimp, halibut, herring, and crab. Demand for these products has never been greater, and with the use of modern techniques, the quantity and quality of these products continues to rise. In addition to commercial fishing, Southeast Alaska offers unequaled sport fishing. Local folks know the hot spots, but fish can be found everywhere in these fertile waters. Like fishermen everywhere, Alaskan guides are loaded with stories of the big ones they've caught, and of course the ones that got away.
Whoa!
Did you get off?
That's the brakes. We lost you.
We lost it.
Hey,
Oh,
that's
wow.
fishing. We were fishing in about 30 feet of water and nailed a rock caught about, 3-4 pounder and reeling it in. It kept getting hit, tapped real hard, and I thought maybe it was a nice ling cod.
Want to tell you that story?
Anyway, as I'm reeling it in, it's really knocking this rock cod really hard. And I get it up to the surface, and we're both looking back there, and here comes this halibut that we estimate around 100 pounds, come leaping out of the water about 2-3 times like a porpoise after this rockfish. And they, Glenn and Vern, had their lines in the water, and about that time both of them got tapped. And they both yelled, "I've got it!" And I'm looking over the side watching this halibut hit this rockfish. Anyway, I think Glenn lost his, Vern got his in. It was a 117-pound halibut. So there was at least 3 in that area feeding on rockfish.
Yeah.
And coming, but that was something to see one come completely out of the water like a porpoise.
Many of the old-timers around the Southeast have relied on fishing at one time or another for their livelihood. Al Brookman, author of The Sitka Man, is one of them.
My father and I came here in 1926. We'd heard about the fabulous fishing up here, and so we bought a little boat, and of course we were green as grass, and we had a hard time getting used to the country. I didn't do very well at first with my own boat, and finally got next to things and got straightened out. And I struck the fish at Cape Edgecombe and paid for my boat in 2 weeks. And there was fish on everything.
On the outer edge of the Panhandle, you'll find the enchanting town of Sitka. Located on the west shore of Baranof Island, Sitka is best known as the former capital of Russian America. Today, Sitka is one of Alaska's cultural capitals. Each year in June, the town presents the Sitka Summer Music Festival. Founded in 1970 by violinist Paul Rosenthal, the festival continues to attract world-renowned musicians who come to rehearse and perform in Sitka's tranquil setting. The presence of these world-class musicians seems to have elevated everyone's cultural appreciation and inspires some of Sitka's young musicians. There are many opportunities for exploring Sitka's history. The Sitka National Historic Park is a great place to learn about Sitka's earliest settlers, the Tlingit Indians. The Tlingits were defeated by Russian colonists in 1799, and much of the town's architecture reflects the Russian influence. Most obvious is the gray and white onion dome of St. Michael's Cathedral, which rises from the middle of town. This Russian Orthodox cathedral was destroyed by fire in 1966 and rebuilt over a 10-year period. Another historical landmark is the Russian blockhouse on Castle Hill, where a decisive battle with the native Tlingits was fought. Sitka is a colorful town that works hard to keep its cultural and historical landmarks intact. The recently restored Bishop's House from 1842 is one of the few Russian log structures remaining in Alaska. Indian artifacts are also well preserved, such as this hand-carved Indian canoe bearing symbols of its Tlingit origin. A popular spot to take in Sitka's past is the museum on the Sheldon Jackson College campus. But to see Sitka's folklore in action, catch the New Archangel Dancers. This energetic group performs traditional Russian folk dances daily in the Centennial Building. In the beginning, the troupe had trouble recruiting men for the dances, but they learned to adapt.
One day a lady came up and said, "I know a man in New York who would love to come to Sitka and help you make your program more authentic." When he first came here, he looked at us and he saw that we were all women and he said, "It won't do." And we told him, "Well, women is all we have in this group, so it's going to have to do." He said, "Well, if you're going to dance like men, then you're going to do it right." And he started to train us, and by the time he left, we could hardly go up and down the stairs. We were so sore. But we did find out that women can do the pozatskis, the Russian floor steps, and we worked on them. It takes about a year before a dancer can actually get down on the floor and do those without hurting themselves.
One of the most pleasurable ways to see Alaska is to book passage on one of the many luxury cruise lines that travel these waters each summer. These cruise ships are floating hotels that carry you to all the major destinations in the Southeast. Like the ferry, cruise ships let travelers experience the passage of scenery at a very special pace. Comfortable, luxurious surroundings, elegant, abundant meals, and onboard recreation make shipboard time a pleasure. You can relax on deck with new friends from around the globe, or head inside when the weather's bad. At each port of call, you'll be walking down the gangway to a new adventure. Nights on the ship are filled with excitement and non-stop entertainment. All these things make cruising such a popular way to travel. Lines like Holland America, Princess, Costa Cruises, and others have made Southeast Alaska one of the top 3 cruising destinations in the world. One of the rewards of traveling by water is the sea level perspective you get on each city you visit. When you approach Juneau, you see the towering mass of Mount Juneau, 3,600 feet high, pressing down on a narrow coastal strip. But once you reach downtown, Juneau seems more substantial, and you easily overlook the fact that this most populated of southeast cities has under 30,000 people. This is Alaska's capital city, home of Alaska's governor and of the state legislature. This has been the site of the state's capital since 1906, when government headquarters were moved from the old Russian capital of Sitka. Like its neighboring cities, Juneau has preserved the flavor of the past. It's a hearty, active environment, from the back alleys and side streets to the spacious waterfront park. Juneau is a walker's paradise. It's a short trek from the downtown section to the quaint residential neighborhoods where we met some of Juneau's young citizens.
Welcome to the streets of Juneau!
On a neighborhood hike, you may come across the St. Nicholas Russian Orthodox Church. The Blue Onion Dome Church was built in 1894 and still serves worshipers today. Further up the hill is the lovely Wickersham House, named after a distinguished Alaskan legislator. This is one of the many houses and buildings built on old mining claims.
When the house was built, what was happening is you have a waterfront down below where there was originally a few buildings built, and then quickly it spread up the hillside. But even when the house was built, this was so far up that there weren't even that many houses up here. It just sort of stood out by itself as a sentinel on top of the hill.
Inside, the Wickersham House reveals the elegance and sophistication gold and wealth could provide, even in a rough frontier environment. Looking out an upstairs window, you see the town that grew from the gold claims Joe Juneau and Richard Harris staked out in 1880. Today, Juneau is a hub, drawing thousands of visitors for recreation, business, and government matters. The city boasts many comfortable accommodations, such as the elegant and historic Baranoff Hotel and the modern Westmark Inn. From Juneau's airport and docks, visitors arrange side trips to the surrounding areas. Glacier Bay Lodge Incorporated offers service to one of the most unique places in the world, Glacier Bay. No trip to Southeast Alaska would be complete without a tour of Glacier Bay National Park. Whether you go by air or water, it will be a trip you'll never forget. Less than 200 years ago, Glacier Bay lay buried under ice, thousands of feet deep. In 1794, Captain George Vancouver noted only a dent in the icy shoreline. Warming trends and earthquakes eroded the glacier's ice, and by 1879, naturalist John Muir found that the ice had retreated 48 miles up the bay. Such rapid retreat is known nowhere else. Today, visitors from around the world come to witness the wonders of Glacier Bay. At Glacier Bay Lodge on Bartlett Cove, there are well-maintained trails that follow the shoreline and lead into the lush rainforest. Cruises up bay on ships like the Spirit of Adventure provide a closer look at the array of birds, sea mammals, and other wildlife that make their homes here. Over 200 species of birds, from exotic puffins to majestic bald eagles, can be sighted in the bay. Many of these can be seen in the bird rookery area around the Marble Islands. It is a journey back in time. The passing shoreline changes from mature forest at Bartlett Cove to newborn land at the fjord's farthest reaches. The bay is often shrouded in mist and fog. When John Muir first explored the area, he called it a solitude of ice and snow and newborn rocks, dim, dreary, mysterious. This sense of mystery makes a trip to the bay in any weather unique and exciting. With the help of an onboard naturalist, passengers may sight bear or mountain goats on the rocky slopes. Further up bay, the ship pauses near one of the park's 16 tidewater glaciers. In contrast to alpine glaciers, which are high on the mountain slopes, tidewater glaciers reach the sea. As the water erodes the base of the glacier, great blocks of ice up to 200 feet high break loose and crash into the bay. This is known as calving. Here you'll see harbor seals resting on the icebergs that choke the waters around the glaciers. Looming above these magnificent glaciers is Mount Fairweather at 15,320 feet, the highest peak in the Fairweather Range. As the clouds part, leaving a patch of blue behind the white peak, the words of John Muir again come to mind. These were the highest and whitest of all the White Mountains, and the greatest of all the glaciers I had yet seen. After a day of cruising the bay, visitors can enjoy the fine food and accommodations offered by the lodge, or return to Juneau for a look at Southeast Alaska's Drive-Up Glacier. Just 13 miles from downtown Juneau rests Mendenhall Glacier. The visitor center at the face of the glacier offers a close look at this retreating river of ice.
Mendenhall Glacier is not the largest glacier off of the Juneau ice fields, but one of the reasons that you hear of it so much more frequent than the others is because it is so accessible here. Very few glaciers can you drive a car and actually get out and get close to it. Most of them you either have to fly or be on a ship to see them. We're over a half a mile from the glacier here at this point. At one time, it actually was here where the visitor center is.
Helicopters will fly you over the Mendenhall to its source, the Juneau ice field, with its 1,500 square miles of ice. From the air, the vastness of this desert of ice becomes clear. Up to 100 feet of snow accumulates atop its mountains in winter, and temperatures on the surface have been recorded to minus 87 degrees Fahrenheit. Eventually, the ice and snow in these mountains become rivers flowing to the sea. If you want to go with the flow, grab your gear and get ready for an exciting raft trip down the Mendenhall River. There's no real danger here, just good times as the boats shoot through rapids and drift on gentle currents. The rivers of southeast Alaska offer more than recreation. From the flash of a salmon's silver tail to the gleam of gold, each one holds a treasure. The Gold Creek Salmon Bake just outside of Juneau lets you enjoy the river's bounty. Start with a fresh salmon dinner by the creek, then head down to the water to pan for your fortune.
It's a low-grade ore belt, meaning that the ore body here within Southeast, about 120 miles in length, is of a low-grade value. Now, about AJ's average here was about 0.04 of an ounce per ton, about an ounce every 25 tons. Now, in Fairbanks area, in a high-grade area, you're in a high-grade belt across the central part of Alaska, right into the Bering Sea. Last year in Fairbanks, a guy found a 35-ounce nugget on a tour operation just like this. He walked over, turned over a rock, and found a 35-ounce nugget in size about 3 inches cubed, worth about $70,000. Now he went home for that vacation at a profit. I guess.
I guess so.
And so it is possible. Now we're in a low-grade area.
The chances of finding a gold nugget to take home are small. But if you're looking for native art, there's plenty around. Juneau and other towns along the Panhandle are filled with superb examples of Northwest native art. Objects of Bright Pride, one of Juneau's fine galleries, presents native art in an atmosphere of respect, as owner Roland Crawford explains.
And when I moved to Juneau 7 years ago, I became immediately entranced by the mystical, charismatic, and yet frightening and challenging aspects of the art of the Northwest Coast Indian, and saw that no one was sharing this art form with the public beyond the State Museum in an attitude of respect and with a concept of trying to provide education for the general public about why this artwork exists. So it is that attitude that I try to promote in the gallery here, that the natives of the Northwest Coast, because they did not have a written language, instead chose to express their relationship to their environment through artistic statements. And one of the means that they chose to use was the creation of masks.
The Tlingit Indians of the Alaskan coast are heirs to an artistic heritage, which one expert describes as unique among world's art traditions. It is a tradition that was nearly lost when the Tlingit people renounced their heritage in an attempt to cope with discrimination and 20th century change. Today, carvers such as Israel Shotridge of Ketchikan work to understand their heritage and rediscover their art.
In these last 10 years, there's been a big surge to educate people like myself, my age and younger, to be proud of their heritage, proud of who they are. That's important because because it establishes a certain amount of identity for you. For my personal feelings, I felt like there was something missing. And obviously, there's something missing, you know, like this is what it is for me. So it's not just carving. You have to know what's behind this, you know, if you're going to carve something, you want to make sure it's the right story and it's not somebody else's story, somebody of the family. Because up here, totem poles not just belong to chiefs who can afford to carve a totem pole, they belong to certain clans and certain families. The story itself, not the totem pole, the story behind it. And also songs that you sing. You can't sing another tribe's songs because that'd be insulting them. So you have to sing songs that, you know, that have been composed, say, by my mother or by my grandmother or somebody before them, our ancestors.
This re-emergence of native arts has been encouraged by a number of centers. Up the Lynn Canal from Juneau, in Haines, you'll find Alaska Indian Arts. Lee Heinmiller, son of the center's founder, Carl Heinmiller, talks about the art of the Northwest Coast Indians and how it's unique.
It's labeled primitive art only because any place that the white man traveled in the world that didn't have a written language, their art had to be primitive. And since the Tlingit people's language was an oral tradition, history, myths, and legends were passed on from one generation to the other through dancing and through storytelling totems. And so if you can't understand that, then, you know, it must be primitive art. But some of the art is really elaborate. And stylistically, it's strange to have really elaborate rules for building a design and yet having individual freedom of the artists in shapes that they arrange. I mean, you're restricted by which shapes you use, but how you put them together in fine detail is your own. And you can see that a lot in some of the old pieces where they must have had so much time that they could just continue elaborating on a headdress and do smaller and smaller detail.
Dance is another of the artistic traditions kept alive at the center in Haines. The world-famous Chilkat dancers began here and continue to perform. Haines is the site for historic Fort William H. Seward. Constructed in 1903 by the U.S. Army, Fort Seward was the only Army post in Alaska between 1922 and 1939. Norm Smith, who has lived in Haines since 1962, runs a bed and breakfast in one of the stately houses in the fort.
This house was built in somewhere between 1902 and 1904 and used to be the chief surgeon's quarters. The house has almost 6,000 square feet, 3 floors, a full basement and an attic. The foundation was cut by Italian stonecutters brought over from Italy. Haines is one of those small town places that you wish that once you discovered it, you wish you'd have done it a long time ago. I've lived here.
In the center of the fort is a 9-acre parade ground. The grounds now house a replica of a small Indian village. Long before the installation of the Army post, this area was a camp for the Tlingit Indians who transported their canoes from the Chilkat River across this site to Lynn Canal. Today, the two cultures share the land. At the Indian village in Fort Seward, you can enjoy a typically Alaskan meal at the Chilkoot Salmon Bake. To further explore Haines, head downtown to the Sheldon Museum and Cultural Center. Elizabeth Hakkinen, whose parents gathered the collection for the museum, describes what there is to see.
Downstairs are the pioneer things, and that is since 1879. And then there's the development of of things like the sawmills, the fishery, and various things like that are downstairs. And upstairs are the Tlingit Indian things. And we have some very fine blanket material. We have quite a bit in the line of basketry and both the things from here and from farther north too. Comparisons of those. And we do show a slideshow and a video that's about the eagles, because we have quantities of eagles here in the wintertime.
Eagles find ideal habitat for their winter home in the Chilkat Valley near Haines. A preserve was established here to protect our national symbol. When the salmon begin their run up these waters in the fall, as many as 3,000 bald eagles will return to feed. Backed by some of the most beautiful mountains anywhere, Haines is a peaceful haven for artists and a desired destination for travelers searching for the natural beauty of the Alaskan wilderness. Chilkat State Park, just outside of town, is favored by campers. Hikers looking for a challenge can head out of town for a trek up Mount Rapinski. The town site for Haines was originally chosen in 1881 by John Muir and missionary S. Hall Young. By 1897, Haines was a gateway and supply route to the Klondike via the Jack Dalton Trail. It remains a gateway to the interior with the modern Haines Highway. This 159-mile road connects with the Alaska Highway at Haines Junction in the Yukon Territory. Another gateway to the Yukon is the gold rush town of Skagway, located at the end of the Lynn Canal. Like all Alaskan communities, the town of Skagway has something special to offer the world. In this case, it's not fish or lumber or precious minerals. The history of the gold rush, the lure of the Klondike is what draws travelers here. The minute you set foot on Broadway in downtown Skagway, you step into a bygone era.
Hi, welcome to Skagway.
Across catty corner from us on the opposite side of the street is the notorious Red Onion Saloon and Bordello. Downstairs is the saloon, and upstairs the ladies of the evening, scantily clad, have their red lights burning in the window. Gentlemen, watch out for these ladies. They'll steal your poke if they get half a chance. Beside that, with 10,000 pieces of individual driftwood nailed to the facade, is the Arctic Brotherhood Hall, Camp Skagway No. 1, built in 1899. The Arctic Brotherhood today is a theater. All these buildings here on the right belong to the National Park Service, and they're being restored and leased back to the private sector for commercial enterprise, including the building on the corner, the Mascot Saloon, which was one of 75 watering holes in Skagway at the height of the Great Gold Rush. You must have been tripping over saloons as you went down the street in those days.
Those days were the late 1890s, when news of a Klondike gold strike startled the world. An international stampede ensued. Hot with gold fever, thousands of people streamed out of West Coast ports bound for the northern gold fields. Filled with feverish hopes, many journeyed up the Alaskan coastline seeking the shortest route to the Klondike, its fabled gold and its unknown hardships. To get to the gold fields, most headed for a narrow valley, a place called Skagway by the natives. Conveniently located near two mountain passes, it was a place where ships could unload their cargo of men and supplies. Preparing for their overland journey, they huddled together in a city of tents that stripped bare the surrounding mountainsides. Skagway became a city of 20,000 men and women steeling themselves for a grim contest with nature. No one undertook the journey to the Klondike lightly. Packers on the White Pass Trail used anything that would pull a load. Each man had to transport a ton of supplies up to the summit of the pass, where snow obscured the trail and ice was hard on man or beast. On the Chilkoot Trail, an endless string of people inched their way along 1,200 steps cut into the icy slope, the famous Golden Stairs. Once over the passes, they built rafts and down the treacherous Yukon River to Dawson City, and from there to the gold fields, where it was either fortune or bust. The thousands of men who pushed through the White Pass and created a wild boomtown out of Skagway. Saloons, gaming houses, and brothels sprang up in the muddy streets, and beautiful women entertained the lonely and desperate men. This unorganized boomtown was perfect for Captain Jefferson Randolph Soapy Smith and his ruthless gang of con artists. Soapy was a charming and rascally racketeer whose fingers reached into all of Skagway's golden pies, till gunned down in the streets by vigilante Frank Reed. Frank also died in the shootout. Soapy's grave is marked by this modest memorial. Frank Reed appears to have done better, but it is Soapy's spirit that endures and inspires Skagway.
The one question, the supreme question before us today, friends, is vital to the welfare of the Republic. Friends, the all-important question which I propound to you, and for which I earnestly seek the answer, is this: how you fix for soap?
Soapy's reign is recreated in the Days of '98 show, Skagway's most popular and long-playing theatrical production. But all this theatrical energy can't be contained in one hall. It literally spills into the streets and seems to infect everyone in Skagway.
They'd call it a crib, which was a house of ill repute, or, girly house.
All right.
Yeah, and there was about between 90 and 100 of them. Scattered throughout the town, but the way they had them divided up into sections. They had them in Japanese, French, and American.
Last year I was up at Lower Lake, about 600 feet up there, and looked down my leg, and there's this bloody little hole on my thigh. And within about 6 hours, my leg was swollen up about 3 times the normal size, and it was red hot and hard to the touch. And I went to the clinic, and the nurse told me that that's the worst bug bite she'd ever seen in the world.
Stovepipe smoke breaks sudden off, and the sky is weirdly lit, and the careless feel of a bit of steel will burn like a red-hot spit, and the mercury is a frozen ball, and the frost fiend stalks to kill. Well, it was just like that day when I set out to look for Bill. But oh, the awful hush, it seemed to crush me down on every hand, as I blundered blind with a trail to find in that blank and bitter land. Half dazed, half crazed, in the winter wild. Sorry.
All of this excitement and theatrical activity isn't taking place on some Hollywood back lot. Skagway is a real place, and Skagway's residents take real pride in their heritage.
Up on top of the boxcar.
People like Oscar Selmer, whose family came to Skagway to work on the railroad,
Was in this cattle car to help him unload.
And my grandparents,
and Barbara
George and
Dedman
Clara
Callan,
came to
whose
Skagway
parents also came in the gold rush and ended up establishing Dedman's Photo Shop, one of Alaska's oldest photography stores. The gold rush gave Skagway its first breath, and before passing from the scene, it spawned one of the great engineering feats of the world, a railroad across the difficult and dangerous terrain of the White Pass. The railroad was begun in the spring of 1898, and by summer of the following year, it reached across the pass to Lake Bennett. A year later, it linked up with Whitehorse, deep in the Yukon. Skagway's White Pass and Yukon Railway still maintains a steam locomotive as part of its passenger service. The railroad runs on one of the last remaining narrow-gauge tracks in North America. The passenger experience begins with a steam engine ride through the town. At the railroad yard just outside town, a conventional diesel engine takes over and the ride to the top of the pass begins. Passengers ride in restored parlor cars, while a White Pass interpreter lends historical perspective.
We'll be able to see a 100-ton slab of granite that's moss-covered now with a faded black cross. And that now serves as a memorial to the 35 lives that were lost during the construction of the railroad.
Helicopters provide still another perspective on the landscape. The people at Temsco Helicopters in Skagway offered our camera crew a ride to shoot these aerial views of the train as it traveled along the steep gorge. After contact with the rugged surroundings, Skagway must have seemed inviting to the stampeders of 1898. And for today's traveler, Skagway's turn-of-the-century atmosphere is ideal for sightseeing, shopping, and just having fun. A sense of fun and a feeling of adventure makes travel along the Inside Passage special. Some travelers choose the soft tropical beaches of the South Pacific, others the excitement and glamour of Acapulco. But Southeast Alaska is special. It's wild, fresh, deep, and mysterious. It's what we imagined things were like when the world was new. A journey through Southeast Alaska allows us to feel the power of this great land and to meet its people, who are as rich in spirit as the land that surrounds them.